welcome to another episode of Friend Outdoors.
On today's episode, with deer season well underway and the calendar changing from October to November, this is a very special time to be in the woods. You will find most of your hardcore deer hunters in their favorite tree stands. This is the time of year a lot of hunters' dreams come true. If luck is on your side, you could find yourself holding your best buck ever. Today, Mark is in one of his favorite tree stands, and the conditions are right. He has high hopes. Here's what happens.
Okay, it's November the 1st. This is an evening hunt. It's about 44 degrees. I got the wind blowing straight up the point. Deer like to bed off these points behind me. This morning I saw about 15 deer. Ended up seeing about 6 bucks. Had a pretty good buck come through here this morning. I got a picture of him. So I thought I'd come here tonight and see if he's still in the area. But they're cruising and looking for does, so it's hard to tell. I could see a bigger one, you never know. So stick with us. If we have any action, we'll bring it to you.
This young buck was the first to show up on this evening's hunt. As this young buck continued to feed out in front of my stand, I constantly looked around, checking out the area, because you never know during the rut when that buck you're hoping for will come slipping in on you. As I sit in my stand, I could hear something walking to my right and notice this raccoon heading in my direction. As we got closer to that prime time hour, the wind began to pick up a little bit more. I thought I heard some deer running up near the pinch point in front of my stand location. It was right about here where I thought I heard a buck grunting. I think this doe saw me as I tried to get the camera turned and pick up my bow. It was right about here I went to full draw on my bow, but I'm to the left of the camera and that tree is in my way. When I shot this buck, the shot looked like it was right behind the leg. It was just a little lower than where I would have liked it to have been. I really expected this buck to go down right there, but as he stood there for about 10 minutes, I started thinking if I should try to take another shot. But as you can see in the video, there are some brush and a few limbs in the way, and the buck's at about 60 yards. But I really expected him to just go down right there, as I could see him bleeding pretty well.
nice buck for my area. I thought the shot looked pretty good, but he just went up there and he just stood for a long time. Then I lost sight of him. So I'm really wondering where I hit now. I just heard a crash. So we're just gonna hang out here. I'm gonna keep my eyes on that ridge over there and see if I see him. So stay tuned. Okay, it's been almost 45 minutes. I'm gonna sneak down and go look for my arrow. He was acting funny, so I don't want to push it at all. I'm just gonna give it more time. Okay, we got my arrow. We got a bunch of hair right there. There's some blood on my arrow.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Here's a recap of this hunt. So I have trail cameras in this area. I run cell cameras and just regular cameras. So I always carry a card reader with me, and I'll take SD cards with me. And if I'm close to these cameras, I'll swap the cards out and I'll look at the pictures while I'm in the stand waiting for deer. So I do this all the time, and I noticed when I looked at this card that this particular buck had been in this area a lot in the past 14 hours. So he was clearly looking for does. The rut was in, they were cruising. It was starting to heat up. So as I'm sitting there in the stand waiting, I hear something in the funnel in front of me. As I get to looking, I see two does hurrying through the funnel heading my way. They hit the logging road and they ran right down there to me at about 17, 18 yards. So as I'm watching them, they immediately turn and they start looking back up the funnel. Well, we all know what that means. It's probably a buck following them. Sure enough, when I look back up there, I see this buck coming through there and he comes out and hits the road. So my first thought, impression when I seen him, he's a shooter. Now we all know, depending on where you're at in this country, you know, some guys are not going to shoot this deer. He's too small. Other guys are going to shoot him all day long. It just depends on where you're at. I can tell you this is a pretty decent buck for my area, so I decided to shoot him. But obviously, they also look bigger on the hoof. But I'm going to shoot this deer. So as the deer starts coming down the road, the does get nervous and they break from my left to my right. And about 50 yards to my right or so, the bench drops off to the next ledge down and they're out of sight. So I was worried that this buck was just going to turn and break and go after him. But as he kept coming, I felt like he was going to come to the last place where they were standing. So I got the camera turned best I could. I wish I could have zoomed in more, but when you're self-filming, it's awful tough. I got the camera set, I drew my bow, and I'm waiting. Right as he stepped out of frame, he stopped. I was holding my 20-yard pin right behind his shoulder and fired. My initial thought was, it's right behind his leg, it might be a smidge low. He did a circle and he ran right back where he'd come from. He was heading back through the funnel. He stopped, he was about 60, 65 yards from my stand. I continued to film him and look through my binoculars at him. As I'm watching out there, I can see a steady stream of blood running down. So I just kept watching, and complete honesty, I thought he was going to fall over there any second. And I just kept watching. Hindsight, I would have probably tried to shot at him again and got another arrow into him. But I thought it was a done deal. Eventually he walks down over the bank and goes out of sight. As he went down into that little saddle, I can see the ridge past him some. And I kept watching it. I could hear something over occasionally. Never could see any deer. So I sit in the stand, I think 40 minutes or so. I got down very slowly. I walked over to the site. When I got there, the buck was actually 23 yards. Yes, I'd used my 20-yard pin. So that was why I was a smidge low. When he circled around and ran back out there, I'd found my arrow. There was a lot of hair there. There was some blood on the arrow. It wasn't as good as I'd hoped, but he was bleeding good, as I saw from the tree stand when he stopped. I probably waited there another 20 minutes or so, just studying the scene, looking at my arrow, and I decided to sneak as slowly as I could to the last place I saw him. When I got up there with that log, there was a lot of blood on the ground. I looked down in front of it, and I could see it going down into the saddle, heading for that other ridge. I never saw a deer over there. As I moved slowly, I tracked down into that saddle about 20 yards, and I heard something, and I looked up on the other ridge, and I saw a deer going away from me, heading for the backside, dropping off. I never could see its head, so I don't know if it was him. Looking back, I think it was, but he went out of sight. As soon as I saw that, I backed out completely. I snuck back to my tree stand. I gathered all my gear up, and I snuck out, went back to the house, got some help, went back in there with some lights. I will tell you that I was sure he was done from what I'd seen and the amount of blood on the ground. So my dad's dog decided he was going with us, and he's a Chihuahua. So as we go in there tracking, he usually stays pretty close to you. I noticed he was going out in front of us, and it didn't take me very long to figure out he was actually on the blood trail. We tried to call him back, but eventually he was gone. I think now looking back that the deer had not expired yet, and I think the dog actually pushed him out of the area. So I can tell you, I look back with a lot of regret. I wish I'd waited till morning now, but hey, hindsight 2020. So we pulled out and left, went back the next morning, found a little bit more blood, but then I couldn't find anything. So I looked over the area as much as I could. I went and talked to the neighbors, got permission to look on their property. I looked for this deer for 2 days. I couldn't find it. I'm pretty disappointed about it. Wish it never happened. That's hunting. I mean, you caught buck fever, If I knew exactly it was 23 yards, sometimes stuff happens quick and you gotta make quick decisions. So I regret that I didn't get this deer. He's gonna haunt me for a while. He's a nice deer for my area, but I know I got him, and I hate that he went to waste, but that's hunting. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope you got something out of it. If you did, please hit that thumb up like button. Really appreciate it. You got any comments, leave them below. Think about subscribing to our channel. Again, it doesn't cost you anything. Just helps our channel to grow. We've also got a lot of short videos on this channel underneath the shorts tab of a lot of different animals. About 15 seconds. We really think you'll like it. We'd like to thank our military personnel. Thank you for your service. Now for a preview of our next episode on Friend Outdoor Adventures.